So here we are in 1835, and the 5 trains just broke. The Prussians out and running big. Got to the stock round, and it's been a doozy so far. I'm still not done with it. I don't even remember where it opened up. All the second-tier companies were out, though. I think this guy may have opened things up. Anyway, been swinging around and around, everybody buying up what they can. All the Prussian shares went. Some people have been dislodging 5% shares, and they've been moving around so that they could get a better action. Eventually, all these last share 20% markers come up, and they're kind of especially the last one, a hard call, because, well, they're good. You want them because they count as two shares, but they're only one certificate, just like presidencies. You definitely want these suckers. But here's the problem. The guy who buys the share before that is giving the next guy the option to buy something really cool. That's what this game is all about, I think. It's the, is it worth it for me to take the advantage I'm taking, even if I'm giving something better to the next guy? Or, can I just afford to sit? Just affording to sit is usually a bad idea in the sense of, if you do that, you could get caught sitting and not get anywhere. Okay. So anyway, this guy bought the final one of the second tier. That opens up. That's not flooded yet. That opens up the first company of the third tier. He couldn't afford it. He looked at all his cash. He would have probably bought the last share of the work, but he just couldn't do it. This guy, on the other hand, dumped 30% of his own company, the Hessian, in order to start buying shares of the Mecklenburg-Schwerin. Mecklenburg-Schwerin starts in a nice location, and he believes he has enough money to float the whole thing. He may be wrong. If that floats, then someone else will probably start the Oldenburg over here. Although that's a somewhat less valuable location. All right. I'll come back at the end of the stock round and we'll see what actually fell out. Okay, so the fallout from all of that. Mecklenburg-Schwerin ends up started. The Oldenburg is ending up starting. Some of the stocks that were falling convinced this guy, hey, those base shares really aren't that valuable. 50% in the stock pool, in the bank pool. The other 50% in the president's hands. The president's tickled pink by this. He had been kind of in a losing position. Of course, in terms of not a lot of capital, nowhere it's going to grow. He really wants to get more trains on it. Well, the fear that he might really want to get more trains on it is part of what instigated the sell-off. Because now the corporations are all allocated. Where's the Bay going to get a train? Okay. So, let's see what's sold out. Not the Prussian, all those 5% shares somebody decided weren't worth it. And they're not bad, though. I don't think they're any worse than the other things at their price range particularly, but, well, yeah, they are. He's only got 3 trains. And you say half of that versus 2 trains. Yeah, I guess they're a little worse. Okay. Sosh sold out. Bod sold out. Wirt, no. Hesh, no. MS and Oldenburg, definitely not. So that's the new stock prices. Will drop down, and we're in a new operating round. Okay. Pushing our way through this stock round, the Prussian has gotten by far the bell ringer, around 44 off its 3 big trains, running 2 of them over in the Berlin area and 1 down here to the west. But for the most part, nothing much has moved. Even with the new companies, though, the Mecklenburg-Schwerin bought a train off the Hess. Now, the Hess was making good money, and it's a shame to pull it, but I need to start getting permanent trains. A pair of 3.3s wasn't going to do it. Mecklenburg-Schwerin didn't have enough capital to buy a 5 train yet. So I'm hoping that between the two of them, I'll be able to get permanent trains on each. And now on to the Oldenburg. Somehow the work has fallen below even the new guys. That'll change very shortly. Okay, so that's the end of the operating round. I'll flip the rest up later. After the Mecklenburg-Schwerin, which I'm not sure how wise its move was, the Oldenburg is trying to break its way in. It may or may not work. Depends on whether, I mean, if anybody wants to stop them, it fails. And then they become this neutered little yuck up there. But they paid out of pocket the extra $20 and bought themselves a 5 train. And that's where I'm wondering, did the Mecklenburg-Schwerin screw up? Getting $20 out of pocket to get that extra train would have been wiser, would have fit my plans better. And I think it was a mess up on their side. Then we go to the Wirt, and the Wirt managed to break through by upgrading this and using some of the train the Saxon built to get a dot near Berlin. And those tend to be pretty valuable. This area is very rich too, so it was a hard decision. He's only going to get to run one place unless something magical happens. Anyway, that's about all I can think of. We'll move to that second operating round. This game ends in only one way, and that's when the bank runs out of money. Yes, that's often the ending in 1830, but I just thought one should be aware. You can't bankrupt someone and force them, and force the game to end that way, which to me is kind of odd. I'm assuming there were a lot of decisions made on this one having to do with the designer disliking a lot of the things that I really, really like about 1830. You know, like, I can change the whole nature of the game by trying to force someone out too early. You know, I mean, that's not a huge thing for me, but actually, the fact that the rules allow you to win if you go bankrupt in 1830, that's the one I want to catch. I've never seen it happen, and I don't think it's possible. But anyway, on to the next operating round. Here we are running into the second operating round. I don't know how many stock rounds are going to be left. I think there's at least one more stock round. This game, however, I believe ends on the operating round when things crash. Or if they crash in the stock round, there's one operating round. So we're seeing dots beginning to fill up a lot of the cities, and things are getting really cluttered. This time the Prussian managed to hit a 48 run. The track's still developing. Some of the cities are being upgraded, etc. So we're going to see increases in the revenue made, but we're also seeing companies getting shut out. Even the Prussian was kind of unhappy to see this get taken. They wish they'd played tokens earlier, probably at this point. They're not sure what to defend, what not, but right now they're still running 2 trains up there, 1 over here, but they don't know what their final train load is going to be. They've got a ton of money and no place they're allowed to use it. So the end of the second operating round there, and you know, we're continuing along the same lines, really. A few things to highlight. Let's see. The Mecklenburg-Schwerin was just a bum deal. He really should have bought that first 5 train. He bought a 5+5 over on the Hess. Now he doesn't have much money. Not that he would have had much more, but the extra $20 or whatever out of pocket. On the other hand, we see the effect that not having any cash is having on the Oldenburg. Got cut off by the Mecklenburg-Schwerin, kind of as a spite move. If I'm screwed, you're screwed too. ended up laying track here. He's running for $3 a share. And it's just, I've so many times seen the Oldenburg screwed in this very way. Another thing to note, a little token here, that's to indicate that the Badish's company treasury owes him $1. There aren't enough singles in this game. Some of you don't play with real money or real play money or whatever, but I always found that a really annoying factor when playing this was almost every game of it we would end up running out of singles. Just to the point where there was no possible way to balance the money. In this particular case right now, there is a possible way, I'm sure. There's enough cash in the bank that we could handle this. But it happened before, and it's $1, and, there's a $200 bill there that I don't want to break. All right, on to the last operating round before the stock round, and it doesn't look like the bank's going to break. There's still a hefty number of $500 bills here. So, I don't know how much there is to do in this next stock round. Basically, it's pick stuff up, try to maximize your capital. But that's pretty standard, right? But there just aren't that many big decisions left. There are still trains left, but there's no big train left. There's no thought of, do I want, a smaller one, or do I swallow and get a bigger one, or what? The only real question is how many do you got? Sixes are coming up. They're going to crush those 3 trains. A lot of companies are relying on them for their high income. A lot of the older companies. And I guess that's about it. Okay, so that's the end of the operating round series. I don't know how many more we got in us. Kind of depends on how much shares, how many shares, etc. are bought. But definitely those late companies, and I've seen this before, and maybe this is what I can't get through my head, is that they're not really worth much. The Olden boy pulled in $7 a share now, finally hooking up. Now, as soon as he buys another share, he can cut through Bremen maybe, and at least increase his value a little bit. But he doesn't even have, even a swallow wouldn't help here. He'd have to have done 2 swallows to get the cash. Now, at 70, he could have done it, but he's planning on buying another certificate. That's enough money to crash through, and he's fine. However, he went 3 big operating rounds, making really nothing. And it was not worth buying those certificates. It was not worth selling the stuff that was sold to get them. Mecklenburg-Schwerin, not a lot better. I think it's cooking at around 13, and it's got him in danger of collapse in case a train comes out. Will a train come out? Big question. It'll happen eventually, but before the game ends, because the only person who seems to be chugging along making enough money with a spot to buy a train is the Sash, or the Bay. Other people could swallow, transfer. I mean, the Sash could play around to get a train. This guy would if he could, but it doesn't look like he's producing the money to take a shot at it. So the question then becomes, well, how long before the Bay finally gets a train? And it's going to be a long time, I think. We're at 600. Yeah, he's got a decent amount. He's got 400 and something. But he might have to swallow, because those Bay shares are looking not that terrible, especially for guys holding the Oldenburg. I mean, he's just so hosed because of that. He wants to get rid of those, and he wants to buy something. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap this one and send it up, and then hopefully it won't be too much longer, because this is the part of the game that I really feel drags always. It's not just 35, it's every XX. Everything's pretty much set. Yeah, there might be a train. There might be something big happens if that train comes out. A lot of people's spare trains go away. I don't think we're going to get to the 6+6s, though. I just don't think there's enough trainage. Although, whoa, this guy will buy another 6 if a 6 comes out. All right, up we go.